Good afternoon, Patriots. This is the American Vision, broadcast on the TLBTV network and brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Bill Muckler, and I'm coming to you from my studio in Cocoa, Florida. And today I have a guest from the state of Texas, Rick Light. And Rick's coming to us from Marquez, Texas, which is about halfway between Dallas and Dallas and Houston. So, Rick, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you on, and really interested in hearing about your what you're doing, your movements, and everything of that nature. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, pleasure to be here, Bill, and real honored to sit here and be able to talk to other patriots about our true Second Amendment. Note that I said our true Second Amendment.
Yes.
People go to my page on Facebook, especially the post I have out today. You'll see a little thing that says, join your local militia. Well, what is a militia? Well, we read the Second Amendment. Now I'm going to quote the Second Amendment. I can do that. It's called a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. It has a comma there. It goes on to say the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Mm-hmm. We ought to ask ourselves, well, what did our founders mean by this? Well, what I did is I did research on what a militia was, especially the militias in the United States. And I found out that ever since settlers came here to this country, they always had to form militias to either guard their communities or to help in disasters. You know, sometimes the farm would burn down, things like that, and people would get together and they would help rebuild somebody's barn or something if it burned down. I think everybody that knows anything about our history, when settlers first started to come here, well, some of the Indians were kind and generous and thoughtful, but then some of the Indians weren't. So we had to have a way to defend our little settlements that we built here until we established somewhat of some commerce, in which we know the French and the English and a lot of other entities were involved at that in this time. And of course, along with trade deals with the American Indians, the Native American Indians here. And that's what we had. We didn't have an army. We had militias, and these militias were community servants. That's what they were. If they were needed to repel back an Indian invasion or an invasion of any kind, they could do it, and they could do it on the ready. They were ready at any time to go. Then when we started to fall into problems with England, we didn't have an army. So what we did is we derived our Continental Army out of our militias.
And they were from each one of the colonies, I guess.
Yes. And this is verifiable history if people just take time and read it. Then you go to find out that our founders realized that if we remained armed, that we could even fight back a tyrant government. I know some people have a problem with that, but if you go back and look at some of the penned quotes by the founders themselves, they even explicitly outlined the fact that if government ever became tyrannical, as long as the people were armed, well, the people had a way to redeem their freedoms and their liberties, to keep their freedom and liberties. They even fight their own government if they have to. I refer back to the Declaration of Independence. It says that if a government ever becomes obstructive to the way we're set up as a free republic, that it's our duty to throw that government off and to reestablish new government that honors freedom and liberty.
You know, you just brought up something very interesting. I've been trying to get across to people, and they just don't seem to get it. But when you mention our founders declared independence, people don't have, they have no clue what that means. And what I keep telling them is they didn't declare dependence, and we don't have dependence on our government. And I think this is what you're getting at, because if we don't have the Second Amendment, we're going to be dependent on the government. It's going to be a tyrannical government.
Well, yes, that's why we're supposed to remain vigilant and armed. Here again, there's a lot of, I know I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of folks listening to us probably.
That's a good refresher.
Yeah, they understand a lot of things, but I would encourage them to go out and teach more about it. Look, the Second Amendment isn't about our guns in our closet. It isn't about deer or going deer hunting and stuff. It's about our ability to retain our freedom and liberty from any foreign invasion or even a domestic invasion. In other words, our government has turned on us, which I'm pretty sure that, hold on just a minute, Bill. I'm going to try to get away from this.
Oh.
The militia and understand the what he did.
Okay.
All right. Okay, but anyway, we were talking about the history of our Second Amendment, what militias were as far as our history went, how our Continental Army was derived, and everything else from those militias, and then why the founders would have the Second Amendment the way they did. Well, folks, some people say that militia thing is like for the National Guard and the military. No, that's a federal thing. That would be a federal statute. It wouldn't be your Second Amendment right. That's penned as your right. And you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what are militias? You look them up, they're you. They're us. They're citizens. There was a time where we volunteered. We were involved with our government more than just voting. We didn't have to have FEMA. We didn't have to have a lot of those things we have now for disasters because good people from the community form militias. They would train. It's why they say a well-regulated militia, well, they're supposed to be trained. Militias are supposed to work the infrastructure of a community, a county. I practice what I preach, folks. Anybody that really knows me, knows my history, knows that I lived in Edwards County, Texas for 11 years. And as I lived there, I worked with the sheriff and the border patrol concerning illegals, cartel, all kinds of different things. And that won hearts. So when the sheriff found out I was a militia leader, he wasn't threatened about it at all. Matter of fact, he got interested when we talked, and I told him about how it's supposed to be set up, how it's supposed to be run in the county infrastructure, and it's supposed to be comprised of volunteers. And he got behind the effort.
So what you're saying is the militia is not opposed to the local government or the sheriffs. It's supposed to work hand in hand with them.
Yes, on constitutional grounds. Note I said constitutional grounds. Yes, militias are, a militia member really has to know the Constitution, what people's rights are, because we're the guardians of them. We're supposed to protect our own rights. We're supposed to be able to protect our own rights. That's not the government's job. It's our job to protect them. And how we protect rights and how we keep them strong is to exercise them, whether you do your voting or whatever patriotic avenues you tend to choose to serve your nation. Some folks join the military, and God bless our military. I'm a big fan of our military, folks. And God bless our brothers and sisters in blue. They got a hard job. I know that a lot of people complain about abuse in police. Well, okay, I get that, and it happens. I don't think anybody can say that it doesn't. There's plenty of proof out there it does, but we don't live in a perfect world. Now, am I saying, does that justify a cop when they cross the line? No, police officers shouldn't be crossing the line at all. But remember this, folks, they're human. They should be held accountable for their actions. But we shouldn't be garbling the whole blue structure as it's corrupt or it's the bad guys. I know a lot of police officers that are good, ardent patriots. I know a lot of FBI agents that are good, ardent patriots. Here again, FBI agents? Well, that scares folks. People need to get over that. Go in there and find out who you got. This country needs unity right now. It needs people to realize that anybody that's down for our Constitution and our way of life, protect America, we shouldn't be having problems with each other. We all know we've got an element amongst our government and amongst our people that don't see it that way. They would love to take the Second Amendment from you, First Amendment could from you. They've already been at it. They've been at it for.
I think that's all part of this globalist movement that the people on the left are looking for. They want the United Nations to take over America and rule us. And we've got to protect ourselves against that. And from what I'm hearing, it's the militias that are going to do that.
Well, that would be a malicious duty if ever come a time that any kind of entity came in to try to seize our weapons or anything like that. Yeah, we're going to stand. We'll have to stand. We have no choice. We were oath to defend this nation and its constitution and the citizens of this country. And what's neat about it, folks, is we're volunteers. We don't get paid to do any of it. And the militia movement's grown quite large. And it's learning how to professionalize itself, and it's learning how to get itself squared off with the sheriffs and other law enforcement and do good things for a community. I mean, come on, folks. Do you really think gangs could exist in your neighborhoods if you guys had well-regulated militias, well-trained militia members working with the sheriff, gathering information on gangs and stuff? It wouldn't be long. They'd be down the road. And, oh, by the way, they want to come by and try to give you a shootout? Well, that's going to get a little rough if you're trying to shoot back. So, do I want cowboy days on the streets? No. Boy, I'd sure like to see our streets being safer out there. Chicago, case in point. There's other cities too. So, a lot of good things can come out of us resurrecting and reviving our militias. We need good people to come into it. We need our vets that have been here, retired police officers. We don't care who you are, as long as you believe in this country's foundings and you recognize the fact that that's your right, and you stand up and you do it with some dignity and honor like our military does. Well, hey, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think volunteerism is a beautiful thing. I know a lot of people complain about FEMA. Well, folks, if you don't like FEMA, replace them with the well-regulated militias. They're going to be capable if any disaster hits. We served in a lot of disasters. And I remember when Joplin was tore apart, the Texas State Militia was there. People remember that. When that fertilizer plant blew up over here in Texas, you know, the Texas State Militia members were there. They had tornadoes hit Illinois. Illinois State Militia was there to serve community. You've got a bunch of this going on, folks. It's good business.
Rick, are there militias in every state, and do they communicate with each other? Are they organize together, or are they completely separate? Boys and girls, it looks like we're having some technical problems. I don't know if it's on my end or Rick's end, but I guess he's got something happening there. Maybe the Wi-Fi isn't as good as it should be. So we're going to get right back to you. Okay.
Okay, we're ready?
We're on. We're recording.
Okay. I guess we got kind of paused out there for a little bit, so we're going to try this again. But anyway, we were talking about how militias, what a militia is, and what's going on with today's militias. And I want to tell everybody, look, the militia of today faces the biggest problem of all because of one fact. Since 1792, this whole thing's been ignored. And you'll have to ask yourself, if you go back and look in Article 10, Section 8, I believe it is, of the Constitution. I could have those numbers flipped, folks. So if it ain't Article 10, Section 8, look at Article 8, Section 10. But either way, it tells us where Congress shall provide for the militia. But yet they don't do it. So here's another problem we have, a prime example of how they pick and choose the things that they care to look at and what they don't. Then you have to ask yourself the question, well, why wouldn't they do that if it's penned not only as a right for citizens, but it said that it shall be provided for? Well, folks, they're pretty limited on their power if we're at a point and ready and staged that at any time, well, we can just stand up and say no. Right now, the only way we have to say no is through voting, and granted, that works. Don't get me wrong; that's a pretty powerful right, and I would tell anybody, please go vote. I know a lot of people get discouraged with voting because of rigging and things like that. I see what they're saying, but you know, they got to rig off of numbers, folks. Let me explain Donald Trump. Yeah, let me explain Donald Trump. They tried to rig the vote. We all know that. But see, the numbers came out in such a mass, they had no idea those kind of numbers were going to come out. So they couldn't fudge the numbers. And it just so happened that the numbers that they probably did fudge, well, Donald Trump's votes were way so overwhelming that they couldn't hide it. That's pretty well telling on themselves. Well, we see the way they're treating him now that he's in office. Folks, we have a problem with our government. It's time we take some responsibility. It's time we learn what we should be doing in these times. And am I asking you to get involved with the militia to be violent or anything like that? No, I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't have had a sheriff back me to put a militia into Edwards County. The judge, sheriffs, and county commissioners all backed it. And folks, that's got a sheriff right there in Edwards County. Her name's Pamela Elliott. Look her up. She's a patriot. She backs that same thing. She understands the power of the Citizens' Second Amendment as well, and is very supportive of the effort. So a lot of people, you got good sheriffs, a lot of good patriots out there in our law enforcement and things like that. It's time we reach across the fence and we start talking to them.
Yeah, you know, Rick, I think a lot of people, their vision or their perspective of a militia is a bunch of guys running around in the woods shooting things up and living out, you know, in camp someplace. But that's just not what you're telling us. What you're telling us is the militia should be citizens and in our communities. Okay, looks like Rick is having a lot of technical problems with his signal coming in, and I apologize for that, and I know he does too, but he's working on trying to get...
Okay.
Okay, Rick, perhaps you could tell us about your local militia and tell people how they can get one organized and who has to do it, and are there leaders, or, you know, or is it a joint effort? How does it all work?
Well, right now we're kind of going through growth pains. We're resurrecting something that's been ignored since 1792. TSM and things like that have been structured county to county. The more research we've done, we found out that militias are county based. They're kind of like belong to their own county. So you'll have a county militia structure. This is the type of structures we're trying to install right now, and that's to put them within the county structure. So the county structure has a little more some more volunteers for the sheriff or the fire department or what have you to call out in case, well, something happens, tornado hits, something like that. The sheriff has extra people to work with. The militias are not belonging to the sheriff. They're not beholding to the sheriff. If the sheriff was to cross the line, there's legal avenues to address the sheriff. And that's the way they should be done. And that should be through the use of the county attorney. The county attorney's supposed to be fair, and if there's a problem with the sheriff, if the sheriff gives an unconstitutional order, well, the commander is supposed to get with the county attorney and they're to address those issues through the channels that's needed to be. For the most part, right now, what we're looking to do is to establish militia in every county, in every state, to strengthen the Second Amendment back to where it's supposed to be, to let the government know this, that we're peaceably assembling. We don't want to fight. Look, folks, a militia member isn't supposed to be talking about warring. What I'm going to do, Bill, is go ahead and probably bring up a page in Facebook for that particular thing. Get other militias that are already established to join the groups as well, which I have a lot of support out there, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay,
anyway,
so you're on Facebook, and people can contact you on Facebook. Look for Rick Light.
Yeah, they can look for me on Facebook. They'll have to hit follow. I carry a pretty good friends list, so of course follow options there. Apologize for having a full friends list, but I've got a lot of people out there that track of each other and stuff like that. In case things arise, we can keep the peace and keep clarity into the whole thing, because we do know that when situations happen, a lot of false news goes running around. I think what they call fake news. Seem to have a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
But anyway, just keep saying clear when we can all stay connected on sites like Facebook and things like that. There is a site called the modernmilitiamovement.com. I would send people to that site. There's a lot of good people that run that site. That'd be a good place to go if somebody's looking for an online or a social site. Been established for quite a while. There's another one, the well-regulated militias. That's one I established in 2000 to somebody else because things got busy here in Texas. I was part of the Texas State Militia. I'm one of its founders. And we just really, what we're really interested, Bill, is to educate people on what their true Second Amendment right is, so folks know how to. We see the states are attacking it now, little piece by piece, whittling it away, folks. That's because we've been led to believe that it's, well, about our guns in our closet. We just now starting to understand what that well-regulated militia part meant. And to spread the news that, folks, you got an avenue out there. I want you to think all the good they can do. Think of our vets when they come home. They need a way to transition back to society again, especially if they've been in hardened battle. Well, that gives them a place to go to still serve community and still kind of have that military feel about them. Not only that, look at the things they can teach the militias as they move along. Retired law enforcement, another big thing. Militias need to know how cops feel and how they think and all that, because if they're going to work with them, well, you got to have that camaraderie there. You got to have an understanding of each other.
So the militia can be made up of male and female and any age, I guess, from 18 or teenagers all the way up to retired old guys like myself.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a right. Your rights never go away, Bill.
Okay.
You're born with our rights, as we all know that government doesn't give us our rights. God gives us our rights, which means we were born with those rights. As long as we protect them, as long as we nurture them and take care of them, and don't allow government to step in. And that's a bit of a problem, folks. Militias aren't got to go you're mean or go talking to tough stuff. the tough stuff. That's all they do is kind of exist. They speak for themselves. It's doesn't have to go around proving he's a tiger. One of those type things. Think of your dog who has some very sharp teeth in his mouth. But everybody's dogs are lovable. They don't bite. It's got a militia like that. Yeah, they've got sharp teeth. They can bite, but as long as they're not being abused, well, there's no reason for them to be mean.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know we've been having a lot of technical problems, but Rick, I thank you for being on the show, and I think we've kind of covered just about everything, and we want to make sure that people know where to go to get all this information, and of course this video is embedded in an article, and we'll have all the links to the organizations that you mentioned. So I really appreciate you coming on and spend some time with us. And I know all of our viewers are really interested in this, and this has been very educational.
Okay, well, I appreciate you having me on, Bill. And just remember, if you're going to get involved in the militia, folks, do it for love of country. Don't want to do it to get involved with a little gang somewhere. Serve community. It's we need that right now. It brings back patriotism, and it brings back the true sense of the American spirit. It's time we step up, folks. We got to step up. Our country needs us.
Hey, amen. Amen to that, Rick. So thank you so much for being on with us, and God bless everybody watching. Hey, Patriots, I'm back, and I want to apologize for all the technical issues that Rick and I were having together, and I know they kind of chopped the show up a little bit, but the content was good, and the movement is what we need to be thinking about. So if you have any interest at all in this, and you really should have a lot of interest in having a militia and getting a militia started and being an active member in your community, then you can contact Rick, or you can contact myself. And you all know how to get a hold of me, and you can Google me, and I guess you can Google Rick as well. And so anyway, the other thing I want to remind you of is to get the book, and if you look at my page there, what's it say? These are the times that try men's souls. Thomas Paine, one of our great founding fathers, patriots, wrote Common Sense. So remember the Second Amendment, boys and girls. That's the most important thing. Get my book, and you'll find out about the Second Amendment. Get my new book, and I've got a whole chapter devoted to the Second Amendment, and the book is about our Constitution. So talk to you later. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for persevering through some of the technical interruptions, and I really appreciate you all watching the show. Come back next time, and we'll have another good show for you. So God bless you all. God bless America. God bless our vets and our men in blue. And God bless our militia members who are volunteering to help our communities and keep us from government tyranny.